So welcome everyone to NPAC's learning webinar focusing on data entry shortcuts. So a couple of housekeeping notes. We are recording this and you'll be able to find a link in our knowledge base. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter those in the Q&A and you'll find that on your Zoom toolbar. Today we'll be covering a number of data entry shortcuts to help you in your day-to-day business processes, including shortcuts, mass entry, and importing. Don't worry about taking notes. Remember, we are recording this, and we will have a handout that we will send with the recording as well. And we'll send that to all those that have registered, as well as make it available in our knowledge base. I'm Amy Strom, the Director of Client Success here at NPAC, and today you'll be hearing from Robin as she reviews these shortcuts. And we do have Leanne available for questions as well. So remember to use the Q&A. With that, I'm going to pass this on to Robin to get us started.
Thanks, Amy. Just going to share my screen so you all can see it. Okay, so I do want to mention I have a lot of information to share with you all today, and I may not go into details for a lot of it, but I do want you to know that I have put into a 26-page handout for after this session that you all will have access to. And Leanne is on the line, so as we're going through, if you've got any questions, she's more than happy to answer. And if you want to chat about any of this stuff after the fact, you can always put in a support case. We'll be happy to chat and talk about additional details for any of these things that I'm going to mention today. So with that, the first thing I want to mention here is Alt F4. So the Alt F4 key, depending on whether you are in the FIMS navigator or whether you are in
screen, Robin.
You're not seeing my screen?
Just a green screen is all we see.
Okay, hold on. Sorry about that.
There we go. Now we can see it.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So depending on whether you are in the FIMS navigator or an actual module, the Alt F4 will close you out of FIMS from the database menu, or it will close you out of an actual module. On the edit menu, you have some fields here for maintaining data in your system. So depending on which one you want to use, for example, cut field, my cursor is in the report name field. I deleted it, I go back and I can undo, or I can use the back button and it will put that information back in there for me. So the edit options will only be visible if you are in a record and there is information to be edited. On the view menu, if we go down to the FIMS navigator, you can see that there are 3 options for shortcut keys. One of them is to bring you to the FIMS navigator. One of them brings you to FIMS processes, and the other one does a refresh. Also, you can see here for contacts, there's an Alt-Control-T that will take you to the Contacts tab. Under record, essentially what you have here are forwards and backwards through the records, but I want you to notice that it does list what the shortcut keys or the keyboard keys are if you want to move any of these things without clicking the menu item. Also, F3 is probably something that's used fairly often. If you hit your F3 key, it's going to take you back to that search screen in whatever module you happen to be in. Inquiries, you have, inquiries is Alt-G for your general ledger year-to-date account inquiry. Under file maintenance, you have something called shortcuts right here. And there are 5 different options for things that you can do in FIMS: a new profile, profile folder, visit a website, new grouped profiles. For those of you that are on premise, send an email will work. For those of you that are in Azure, that it would not be an option. The next menu is Tools. And under Tools menu, there is Spell Checker and the calculator. But if you notice to the right-hand side, there are some keyboard shortcuts there that you can use as well. And those two options are also available over here under toolbar buttons. One of them is for calculator, the other one is for the spell checker. Now, speaking of toolbar buttons, depending on which module you are in, you're going to see some additional tool buttons here. So right now I happen to be in the profile module. So these are specific to the profile module. But if I was to go into another module like GIFs, over here on the right-hand side, these tool buttons are specific to the gift module. So some best practice recommendations I'm just going to throw in. If you're in the gift module and need to create a new profile, you can actually do that right from the gift module. If you're not sure if the profile is already in the system, there's a nice little lookup under inquiries for lookup profile ID where you can look through all the profiles in your system to make sure that you're not creating a duplicate if you create a new record in there. Okay, some other keyboard shortcuts to mention would be the F2 key. And this is, I think, a really good one just because what it does is if I hit my F2 key, it opens some user-defined notes. So these are user notes. So if there's something specific that you want to put in here that you want staff to know what the process or the procedure is, or some parameters that you've established. For example, I happen to be in the Profile 1 tab, and when I hit my F2 key, I have set this up so that is screen level help. So it's basically help for any of the fields on the Profile 1 tab. And this is just a sample of some of the things that I have put in here, but this is kind of great because people don't have to go looking for additional documentation to see what these things are. The help is right within the FIMS system. Another one is your F3 key. The F3 key will bring you back to the data grid, depending on which module you're in. In this case, I happen to be in profiles. It brings you back to the screen where you can actually search for another profile. And the other one that I use fairly regularly is the F5. So the F5 key refreshes your screen. So maybe you've processed something or posted a journal entry and you're not seeing it, the information, it's probably because you just need to refresh your screen, and F5 key will do that for you. Let's see, dates. So dates in the system, there's a couple different ways to add dates. So here, I'm gonna do this. I'm putting my cursor in my, this is a date field. So if I hit the T key, it's automatically gonna put in today's date. What you also can do is hit the plus on your keyboard and it will add a day each time you click on it. Or if you hit the dash, it'll subtract a day. So you can click the drop down to choose a date. You can use the T key for today, or you can just manually type the dates in to the system. All right. Clip buttons. So clip buttons are available in a couple different places. One of them is on this Profile 1 tab. There's a little clipboard to the right of the address to. What these buttons do is copy the name and address information and the salutation to the clipboard, and then you could paste it into a Word document if you were writing a single letter, or you could paste it into an email. So the clip button is available on the Profile 1 tab. All right, the next one is copying a contact. So there is a clip button in the contact record. So if you look over here on the right-hand side, and my cursor is hovering over that little clip button, and it's telling me that it's going to copy the entire contact to the Windows clipboard, where you could paste it into an email address if you're sending the information to somebody. So these clip buttons are also available to you in the acknowledgement tab in a gift record, and the contact tab in an application as well. Okay, the next one is default values. So there's two places that these default values come into play, and that is in either the grants or the scholarship module. So when you enter a new application, here's your application entry values. This is a shortcut for entering data, because if you have a large number or anything, more than a couple, this will automatically populate these fields for you when you are creating new applications. So you can pre-populate this, which will work. Now, if you need to change those default values as you're going through, maybe the first 10 were one date and you need to change the next 10 to a different date, that's what this little red heart with the D is. It'll pull it up at any time. And then in the scholarship module, for those of you that might have the scholarship module, there is the same thing. So the first time you click on the new button to create a new scholarship, it populates with this. But then after you've entered some applications, if you want to go back to those defaults, you have the little red heart with the D. So that's another way to save time when you're entering information into the system. Another time saver is, I'm going to go to the funds module. So if you look at the bottom of this particular screen, and what screen we're looking at is the edit and post admin fees, there's a button that says defaults. So each time you run your admin fees, you have to go through and populate what is the general ledger apply date, choose what your fee code frequencies are. You do have the ability to save some of these parameters and auto-populate them the next time you go to run admin fees. So if I click on admin fees and say load selection, it's going to pre-populate with the information that I have saved, and then I have minimal changes that I need to make before I run my admin fees. This defaults button right here is also available in the gift import tool, in the grant import tool, recurring grants from fund distributions, in your general ledger budget import, your GL journal import, asset rebalancing entries, recurring vouchers from fund distributions, or when you're importing cleared check data. So that list of what I just said is all in that documentation, but there are several places where that can come in handy by saving the default value, saves you a few minutes. All right, you also have the ability to copy records. Let me go back to profiles. And for example, let's say that I have a new organization that I've added to the system, and now I want to add individual profiles for the employees at that organization. You're going to use the same address and everything, so you can just copy by clicking the copy button, and it asks you if you're sure you want to copy the current profile. And then you could just change that to an individual profile and plug in the information for that particular individual. So the copy button can be helpful if you need to create multiple profiles in that instance. Let me cancel. And this copy button can be helpful for profiles or contact records or relationships, alternate addresses. There's lots of things that you can use the copy button for that'll help save time. You can also copy grants from history. So if you go into the grant module and go into application history, and you wanted to copy an application, for example, I'm going to click my copy button. It's telling me that the copy function is not available in application history, but if I want to create an unposted application from this, I can. So if I say yes, you can go through these particular options here and determine which ones you want to have new information, and it will create an unposted application for you. All right, you also have the ability to, so in the unposted applications tab, you have the ability to mass update fields within the unposted applications. So I'm going to highlight my first application, going to use my shift key and highlight the last one. So they're all highlighted in my data grid window. If I right click at the very bottom, there's something called mass update. And if you look, it's listing the fields that I can mass update. So I can update action, status, board date, committee date, grant date, committee code, or the batch field. And right now it's telling me that it's going to update all of the highlighted records for me, but you do have other options for which records you would actually like to update. That's kind of a little hidden feature there that's easy to forget about. And then the other one is in the gift module. So under unposted gifts, let me highlight these and I'll show you. So you do have the ability to update the batch field. So you just plug in whatever you want the new batch to be, and all of the highlighted records that I have will be updated with that particular batch. All right. In the profile module. So in the profile module, there are lots of ways to mass add affiliation codes to profiles in FIMS. You can add them just a generic mass add affiliation code. You can add them based on zip code, whether they're a donor or a grantee or a fund rep, or based on a relationship. And you can even mass add affiliations to an exported data file, an Excel spreadsheet, the contents of what's in an Excel spreadsheet. So that's a way to mass add affiliations. You can also mass add contact records or affiliation or affiliation codes from reports and exports. For example, in the profile module, I have address listing with labels and email. And let me just run this. So right here in the menu bar, there's a little option for create contacts and affiliations. Basically, whoever is listed, whatever profiles you have listed in that particular report, you can mass add a contact record, or you could mass add an affiliation code. The affiliation code would have been created in the code table before you do this, but you can mass add either one of these. So there's lots of different options for mass adding contacts and affiliation codes in both your reports and exports. And I've provided in the documentation some lists of profile reports and exports, gift reports and exports, grants as well. Okay. You can also mass add contacts or affiliations for records that are in a data grid. So you could use your default data grid, or you could create a custom data grid based on a set of filters to limit the data that's going to show up in there. So in order to do this, we have our little process selections button to the left of the data grid. and you have the radio button for create contacts and or affiliations. And it's going to, unless you check the box that says tagged items only, it's going to mass add them to all the profiles in that particular data grid view. Automatically creating grant applications. So in the grants module, you have auto create grant applications. So based on your specific information, so you would have to enter the criteria that you wanted to filter these records based on. So maybe you wanted to make a copy, and I don't have a lot of data, so I'm going to say all applications from last year I want to copy. And it's going to run a report and it's going to show you all of those applications, and you're going to get a create applications window or menu item up here. And then you're going to get this default new value. So you would have to go through and determine what do you want the new grant date to be, if there's a new board date, if there's any of this information that needs to be updated. And if you notice the default checkbox is for contact name and address from the profile, that's because if you're updating information, you're going to update the profile record, not history. Another way to mass create applications is in the fund module. Well, it starts in the fund module. So in the fund module, there is a distributions tab. And in the distributions tab, you can set up different distributions based on a percentage, based on a dollar amount. Maybe there's a designated grantee that gets the same amount of money every year, or they get the same percentage of the calculated spending amount. These can all be set up here, and you can report on them through the fund module. But the even better thing is that in the grant module, you have the ability to create recurring grants from fund distributions. So this allows you to say, what is your next action date, which is set in that distribution in the fund module? Is it based on the available to spend calculation? Is it based on a single fund balance? You also have defaults and application defaults here, so that you can auto create your applications from your distribution records. So it'll actually run a report for you, so that you can review and make sure that this is the information or these are the grants that you want to create. And then at the very top, under the menu item, create unposted grant applications. So that will create them in the grant module, and you can let them follow the normal process. There is also probably less used, but there is also the ability in accounts payable. You can use that distributions tab for your operating fund. And if you have recurring monthly bills, maybe you've got a rent expense or certain things that are the same amount and go to the same vendors every month, you can auto create them from the distributions on your operating fund. So that's also an option for that. Uses the same tool, but makes data entry a little bit easier. The next one is in the fund module, and it is copying fund representatives. So instead of having to add a fund representative one at a time, you can copy them. So for example, if I said, the type that I want to copy is anybody that gets a donor statement. I want to add a new fund association to that. We'll say fund rep. And then you also have the ability to filter based on a group of funds, any of your coding, division, class, type, subtype, spending policy codes or admin fee codes. And then when you click on OK, it just created 24 fund associations for me. So that's a great way to mass add additional fund associations without having to do this one at a time. Going to go back to the fund module for the next one. And this is mass fund field assignment. So this is a way to quickly add codes to a large amount of funds. So maybe you've created an additional administrative fee code and you need to add it to all funds. This is the tool to do that for you. And you can also filter based on any of your fund coding, spending policy, an admin fee code, or asset strategy. So this is a great way to mass add any new codes that you need to. Going to the general ledger for this next one. So under general ledger, we have under journal entry super tab, we have automatic entries, and there are a whole list of automatic entries out here that can be used to mass create journal entries. Probably the most popular ones that we have are automatic cash entries. And what that does is it runs a routine that basically facilitates intra-fund transfers. So let me just give you a quick visual here. So you have a transfer to and a transfer from. These are GL accounts that you're going to put in here. And you have a couple different choices. You can sweep all of the money out of the transfer from, or you can pull money in to, say, a checking account that has a negative balance. So we call this cash call, but that's one way. Another one is asset rebalancing. So asset rebalancing is extremely cool because it doesn't do just a one-way transfer, either sweep the money out or pull the money in. Asset rebalancing looks at everything based on individual fund settings or asset strategy code and does all of these transfers at once for you. So the asset rebalancing module is available. The other one is entries from journal history. That one is very often used because what it does is you can copy entries from previous months. So if you need to do the same journal entries month over month, you can copy them, put in new date, maybe a new journal key, but it also creates reversing entries for you. So if you have, maybe you ran your admin fees and realized you were missing or you didn't finish allocating your fax earnings, you need to reverse all of those. This is a great tool. It does it really fast for you. So then you can go back and rerun your admin fees. Another one is allocation and entries. So allocation and entries allows you to allocate out dollar amounts to funds depending on either a fund balance or based on a general ledger account. So let's say maybe you got a check from your investment. Instead of them putting it into the statement, they sent you a dividend check and you need to allocate that out to all the funds that are in that pool. You absolutely can use this tool to allocate that out. In the base allocations on the value of GL accounts would be your pooled asset account. And then you'd plug in the dollar amount and FIMS would allocate that out for you. It also allocates out expenses because you specify what your debit and credit accounts are. So depending on what you need to allocate, allocation and entries can do that as well. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is imports into FIMS. So we have lots of different imports into FIMS. The first one is importing profiles. So importing profiles is under admin utilities, profile imports. And you have the ability to not only import profiles from a spreadsheet, but if those profiles that you're importing need to have a donor record, or maybe they need to have a grantee record, you can also mass create those donor and grantee records instead of having to do them one at a time. It's a huge time saver. Another import that we have into FIMS is importing record updates. And what that allows you to do is import additional information into records that are already existing in FIMS. So maybe you need to import something specific to all of the profiles. Import record updates will do that for you. We also have the ability to import gift records into FIMS. So under File Maintenance, we have Gift Import. Gift Import utility also has your defaults. So once you've taken the time to populate all of this information in here, you don't need to do it each time. You just go into your defaults and load the selection, and it will automatically populate all of the fields that you've already done. So you're just going to tell FIMS where this data lives, which columns it's in your spreadsheets, and you're going to call it up using your defaults and import. So gift imports. We also have a grant import. And grant import right here works the same way. You're going to tell FIMS where the data is in the spreadsheet that you're importing from. And again, you have a default button, so you can just load the information so that you have it in your system. In the handout, just as an FYI, I have also included a link to the knowledge base articles for all of these imports for more information specific in the system. The scholarship module also has an import for those of you using scholarships, scholarship import right here. And you're probably noticing that these import tools work the same. So they're all just mapping the data from the Excel spreadsheet into the tool in the system and doing the import. We also have a way to import general ledger journal entries in the general ledger module under file maintenance. We actually have two imports here. So if you're tracking your budgets in FIMS, you can import the general ledger budget, and you can also import journal entries, and they do also work the same. You're just going to map your data in your spreadsheet to the columns here in this tool and import. And if there's stuff that you're doing on a regular basis, maybe you're importing payroll entries month after month, you could set it up to have a set of saved defaults for payroll entries or any sort of recurring entry that you might need. In the facts module, we have an import as well. And that is to import the facts account summary reconciliation. So instead of going into each one of your investment accounts individually and plugging in the gains and losses, you can import that from a spreadsheet. Under the spending policy routine, which is under view spending policy, you can also import spendable amounts. So maybe you're calculating that information outside of FIMS, you can import it from an Excel spreadsheet into FIMS. In accounts payable, you have the ability to import both accounts payable vouchers, and you can also import cleared check data if you're using FIMS AP reconciliation to reconcile your checking accounts. You can import that as well. Okay, so I must have talked faster than I thought I was going to talk. So we do have a couple minutes if anybody has any specific questions or wants to see
Great.
more.
We do not have any current questions listed,
Okay.
but we can give just a moment here and see if somebody wants to enter any. That was a lot of information. Thank you, Kevin. But we do have that all documented that we will send out with the recording. I will take the screen back. Okay. And Robin, you had mentioned that that was quite a few pages.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's 26 pages of information, more details about everything that I covered today. And like I say, if there's anything that interested you or something you want to know more about after this session, certainly put in a case. I'll be happy to go into detail or help you use any
Great.
of those features.
Well, I'm sure that once people get their hands on that document, that'll be able to help them through any of those. I'm glad that's all documented, so everyone wasn't frantically quick writing down shortcuts. So there's still no open questions at this time, but please feel free to reach out to our support team, and we can address those questions as we go. I want to quick mention that our next Let's Talk Solutions for FIMS will be on July 10th at 11 a.m. Central Time, so mark your calendar. As always, if you have topics you'd like us to cover, please reach out and let me know, and we'll get that added to our list. But our next one will be July 10th. I think that's all we have for today, so I want to thank you all for joining. Again, please reach out if you have ideas for new Let's Talk solutions, as well as if you have any questions on these data shortcuts. Thanks all.